Welcome to the Report, where we watch and talk about every episode of the Colbert Report from 2005 to 2014. That's a lot of episodes. I'm Nathaniel.
And I'm Alex.
And Colbert's guest on this episode is Tim Robbins, the actor.
Yeah. And it's been a month since the first episode. He doesn't mention that, but if I was recording, so it's November 17th.
This is how many episodes?
I've only have wondered how do monthly dates work for months in a different number of days. I looked online, it seems like they have a variety of answers for that, but I think it's like 20 or 21 or something. Thanksgiving break is coming up next, so they skipped a week, but...
Okay, so...
Yeah. And of course, for Tim Robbins, he says he's finally going to make him take a stand in Iraq. The joke, of course, being that Robbins is pretty famous for being against the Iraq War at this point, so...
It's vocal activist, right?
Yeah. I hadn't really remembered it, but I remember that he was the president of the Film Actors Guild in Team America, so yeah, it was supposed to be one of the actors that...
Was there ever a Film Actors Guild? Like,
I'm
I know it's obviously the name for the joke, but it's not an implausible name for a union.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of the situation with Find a Grave, the genealogy website. So the first bit is he talks about how Barney Frank in the Boston Globe said that his Better Know District interview was a waste of TV space. And of course, Colbert says that that's just because he didn't lob softballs like Chris Matthews or Meet the Press. And he's just stung that he got nailed. And he says, like, here's what he calls a waste of TV space. And he shows some, like, unseen previous footage of Colbert
walking with Barney Frank
in the office, the house office hallways.
Yeah. And then Colbert breaks into dance.
Yeah.
And it's very confusing.
Yeah.
It's like, what? I mean, I assume if you're listening to the show, you're watching the episodes along with us. But if you haven't been for some odd reason, please find this clip because it's very funny.
Yeah.
It's I would say one of the funniest things on the show.
And I said you were wondering what, like, the original... That's big words, but you were wondering what the original intent was.
No, I mean, it's really funny.
Yeah.
And it's like this is in the house hallway. Yeah. And it's like and it must have had some sort of lead in the conversation. Because Barney Frank just ignores it.
Yeah.
And it's like, did Barney Frank notice? Or is he just ignoring him?
I don't know. Maybe both.
At a certain point, I wonder if it was edited in, but it clearly wasn't. It's clearly what he actually did.
Yeah.
And I wondered why it wasn't in the original Better Know District segment.
Maybe they just had a time thing and they realized that it wouldn't fit the format.
I mean, I'm glad they found a way to work it in.
Yeah.
I wonder if they were waiting for Barney Frank to say something about the interview.
Maybe. And I'm wondering what other Colbert footage existed that was always cut. I think they do restore it sometimes when they do, like, the special tributes, but... Yeah. Got something better pitched to the network. You'll need a new job pretty soon. I think it was, like, 4 something years before he retired, but so yeah, not that soon.
Yeah.
He does talk about it on Colbert when he retired. No more free rides, Barney. And
the word
is McConaughey, as in Matthew McConaughey, who was just named People Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive, what Colbert calls the nation's top honor.
How long has the Sexiest Man Alive award been going?
I'll have to check. I did look up Sexiest Man Alive, but not like when it was first done.
It's an odd award. It's just a fame, how good your agent is award.
Probably, or just like how much people want to talk about. Wikipedia doesn't even show up on the first Google search results page anymore, even though
People Magazine.
The first Sexiest Man Alive was 1985, Mel Gibson. So,
are there any dead sexiest men?
I mean, yeah, JFK Jr.
Oh, okay. Do you think they should make a new sexiest man dead? Where they just find sexy men from history?
That would be kind of sad if the Sexiest Man Alive died before.
Yeah.
The misinformation.
I don't know if they've ever had to deal with that, where they had a...
Colbert claims that he and McConaughey go way back, which I don't think is true, but who knows?
He might have known McConaughey.
Maybe,
it's possible.
Might have been, at least. Like, it says, like, what makes a man sexiest of all is being an American, and Matthew McConaughey realizes that. Apps as hard as Plymouth Rock. This is its return to form after the non-Americans, the limey Jude Law for 2004, the Welshy Pierce Brosnan from 2001, Johnny Depp, who calls a wannabe Frenchie from 2003. I remember hearing that he lived in Paris, but that didn't seem to have been true. It seems like he probably visited Europe a lot, but I don't think he... It seems like he has a house.
That's why he's a wannabe. He's not an actual Frenchie.
I know, but even so. And Ben Affleck in 2002 is whatever nationality being from Massachusetts is. A Chusey is how the... And then he's saying...
Massel.
Maybe, yeah. Of course, he admits that they're sexy. He says, it's not saying there aren't. Is it hot in here or is it them?
Mm-hmm.
And then he returns to his line that it's just that men know what men like.
It's
men,
a callback.
as the
caption says, yeah.
And then he says, but Matt has something more. It is dope and bongos, which refers to the fact that apparently Matthew McConaughey was arrested in 1999 for playing the bongos naked while he was high on pot.
Where?
I think it was in his home, but
who called?
I'm guessing it was probably just noisy enough that people would have. Maybe it wasn't his home, but yeah.
Was he? I assume he wasn't playing well.
He
was high.
Yeah, probably not. And I don't think he ever took training in how to play.
I don't know. I'm not sure why you call the cops on somebody for that. It seems like kind of...
Maybe they could smell the pot. Maybe.
Live and let live. I know, but it's Matthew McConaughey.
And then, of course, how he...
I mean, think about it. That's probably the best chance you have to get close to Matthew McConaughey.
Probably, yeah.
If you bring your own drums, you'd probably be pretty okay with it.
Yeah, form a whole drum circle.
Yeah.
And of course, he said that Matthew McConaughey uses an indefinable essence, which is musk and dope. So then he goes over McConaughey's answers to, he says, people's sexy aptitude test. I can't tell if it's normally called or not, because looking it up didn't really get anything.
It's an SAT.
Or SAT, but I'm wondering, like, that could have been a joke people made, but I don't think.
Yeah.
And he says he got a 1430, which would have been for the out of 1600 SAT. And I was checking what SAT was in effect back then. It seems like the SAT, which had a 2400 score, had just gone into effect, but like probably not long enough for people to adjust their jokes.
Okay, but so when did it go back?
I think around like 2013 or so.
Okay,
so it was around for that long.
So it was an 8-year period?
Probably.
So a president's term.
Big, although still too proud. And then when they asked him if he was into public displays of affection, he says, I don't care to go down to tongue down in public, and then compares it to Lincoln, and they have like a picture of Lincoln with his tongue out. And then you were wondering if like he couldn't say French because of the Freedom Prize.
Yeah, I
don't know. And when he was asked who his hero was, he said, me in 10 years. I mean, he had he had won an Oscar by then, so maybe he had a point.
Maybe he had a point, yeah. What did he win an Oscar for?
Dallas Buyers Club.
Dallas Buyers. Which
is like the movie about like the true story of the man that finds out he has AIDS and tries to get as many people like the AIDS medication.
Oh, that took a different turn. I thought you were just going to say try to get as many people AIDS as possible.
Oh, no.
Rather than get them the AIDS medication.
Yeah.
So that's a much better, happier story.
And so he says, like, Colbert says, I'd have a tattoo of me on my chest if I knew what I'd be like now 10 years ago. And so then, of course, Colbert recommends himself for Sexiest Man Alive because he says, if you want, instead of rock hard abs, bedrock values and rock hard abs, I'm not pitching myself, but Matthew's got my number on his chest. And so the segue is there's nothing more sexy than fear, which leads into the threat down.
Yep. Things to be afraid of.
Yeah. I feel like later on they would only do it when they got good bear stories, or they have been able to get a decent amount of bear stories once they started.
There's always somebody doing something stupid around a bear.
Or just bears, because I mean bears are around people.
Bears are, they're around people, they're destructive, so it's not
Yeah. And 5 was C-sections. They said 29% of births were through C-sections in 2005, 32% in 2021, so it hasn't changed that much.
So how much was 29% up from 2004?
I don't know.
So is it like a big rise, or was it? I
don't think it was a rise in 1 year. Like I don't think.
But about 30% is the norm?
Probably about now. And then it says that's bad because birth gives something women to hold over those kids' heads for life.
Yeah.
That they gave birth to that, and over the father's head and anyone who listened to family barbecue.
Yeah.
And now we can't make it the uterine ceiling to. It's kind of funny because that suggested it would be the harder one.
Yeah. And number 4 on the threat down
is
children. The products of C-section.
Because Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich, who's probably now most famous for going to jail for trying to take bribes on who would get Obama's Senate seat and other things.
That's like a stupid thing to take bribes on.
Yeah. Signed a law that would like say that Illinois would like pay for like health care for children or something.
Because why would you take bribes from other politicians who?
I don't think they were other politicians necessarily. I think it might have been other things. I think it was just around the time that
who did end up replacing Obama's Senate seat?
I think it was Roland Burris for a bit. Of course, he didn't last that long. I know the following election they actually elected a Republican, but
because I assume they were tired of the
governor's. That was probably part of it. And it says there's his daughter Eddie has a severe case of the adorables.
Yeah,
she was at
she's on the stage during the announcement.
And it says, like, it might be good now, but how in 18 years when they're an adult and can vote for wanting, like, this healthcare forever? Like, these countries, and it has a list of a few of the countries.
Like Japan, Germany, the UK.
Canada. Oh, it wasn't that complete a list. There were definitely more countries than that.
It was mostly the group of, like, group of 20 countries that have
Yeah.
healthcare.
And then it says, at the end, no thanks. Of course, I point out now it has been 18 years since this episode, so I guess now we'll find out
what those children really wanted.
Yeah, and then...
threat number 3?
And it says, like, you're shooting us in the foot, Governor, and we don't want to pay for your wound. Number 3 threat is Indians. First, it shows a picture of somebody from India, and it says, no, not those Indians. And it shows a picture of the village people, and then it says, no, real Indians. There goes that tribe, it's probably like the Blackfeet tribe, had been suing the government for up to $100 billion in, like, natural resources.
Did they win?
It seems like I said, it was a very long case. It started in 1996 and ended in 2009. Yeah, the eventual name of the person would be Obama's Interior Secretary. So, and it wound up being a $3.4 billion settlement at the end, plus like a smaller scholarship. Yeah, plus a smaller scholarship fund. And at the time, like the DC Appeals Court had denied the request to try to enumerate how much they owed them because they said that it just wouldn't be possible.
Which I assume was a lie.
I don't know if it's a lie, but it probably would be kind of hard to determine that exactly. Yeah. And then he says, like, now I'm the first to admit that Native Americans have been screwed by this country. In my book, How Native Americans Maybe Have Been Screwed by This Country. And it shows a picture of him as an Indian on like the cover. Yeah. I could only wondered if that was a real book, but I'm pretty sure there's only a few books.
Yeah.
And
is Calvin Coolidge the only president who's officially made a member of a Native American?
No, he wasn't he wasn't a member of Native. You're thinking of Charles Curtis, the vice president.
No, I thought Coolidge was.
I mean, maybe he was.
Like ceremonially.
Maybe.
You can look this up.
Oh, look it up.
But no, I know Charles Curtis was.
I mean, he was born into the Kaw tribe, but...
Yeah. No, but I know But the picture of Colbert in the headless is funny.
Can't tell. I mean, he was the one that gave citizenship.
I believe they gave him honorary membership.
Oh, yeah, it seems like he had a Lakota adoption or something, but I don't know. Because
of the act he
passed. So, baby. And it says, like, how many wars can you buy for $100 billion? Maybe like a third? And of course,
the joke on the Iraq War,
probably somewhere like that. Oh, it's probably more expensive than $300 billion in the end, but
yeah.
And then of course he says, like, I feel like Indians have screwed us over too with like what kind of roulette wheel goes around for 8 hours and never lands on 23, which is about the India casinos. It reminds me in the South Park where they go to the Indian casino and their plan to like buy the town back is to win it at roulette, and they actually works, but then they want to bet it again. So
What if there's a casino that was built on an Indian burial ground?
Oh, that might exist.
By Native Americans.
I'm not sure why. Maybe it was another tribe's burial ground and they wanted
Would they get cursed or would it just be
I don't know.
Normal?
And so number 2 is PBS for their biased coverage. It says they're a bastion for Reds, naming as examples Elmer, Clifford, and Poe, the Teletubby.
Yeah. Famous Red characters.
And so it's talking about Kenneth Y. Tomlinson, who'd been appointed chair of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting in 2003 by Bush, apparently. And it seems like he definitely wanted to try to make it more conservative, but was getting called out for just like not doing a very good job. Colbert's charges are interfering with public programming and political tests and hiring, which I've been true, but it seems like the main ones they're talking about is like him using federal money for unauthorized personal purposes, and hiring unqualified and ghost employees is the sentence in Wikipedia. I feel like Colbert would have made a pretty good joke about why is it wrong not to hire ghosts.
What do they mean by ghosts? Like,
like employees that weren't there. Like, he said he hired people but he did it.
So the payroll's made up?
I guess. And then he says that Tomlinson just wants to make sure there's two sides to every story, and one of them has to be conservative. Like, I want the liberal... When I'm watching a documentary on the Marianas Trench and its blind shrimp, I want to know the liberal and conservative take on it. Yeah. PBS is endangering our nation's need to make everything about politics. So it doesn't seem like Tomlinson's thing worked out that well in the end. But I do remember, I think NPR did get into a bit of trouble for how it covered Guantanamo, so maybe they were a bit afraid of it. But
yeah. Does... PBS is the person in charge always have media experience, or just the president?
I know. I mean, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting isn't actually having any authority over PBS other than giving it money.
Oh, okay.
And I think that it doesn't even make up the majority of their budget anyway, so...
So it's not really that...
I know that was, one of the issues with, Elon Musk said that, it's unfair that NPR doesn't get called state-sponsored media, but...
Because it's not really, right?
Yeah. I mean, Voice of America is, I think, because that actually is state, huh?
Yeah.
And so number 1, of course, is Bears.
Are Bears always number 1?
Pretty sure from this point they'll usually be number 1. There was one exception later, I know, but...
What was the exception?
It was a Christmas one, and it was real Christmas trees because they have bats, which might be tiny bears, but...
Okay, so it's bears in the end.
Yeah. And that was because Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie found the bears had broken into their Canadian vacation home. They said they're rummaging for food or maybe some pictures they can sell to tabloids. They wondered if next they'll go over Vince Vaughn and Jennifer Aniston. Of course, Jennifer Aniston was Brad Pitt's wife before Angelina Jolie. It seems like they were filming the movie The Breakup together at that time, but they were not in fact dating. Although I wouldn't be surprised. No, Vince Vaughn and Jennifer Aniston.
Why? Well, like, how could they be dating? They broke up.
Yeah. And then wondering if McConaughey was going to be next. And he pulls back the People magazine that he still has on his desk. And so next is the interview with Tim Robbins.
I hope McConaughey does not get attacked. Has Matthew McConaughey ever been involved in a bear news story?
I don't know.
That would be good to check, I think.
I'd
hope it'd come up on the show if it happened.
Yeah, the interview with Tim Robbins is next. And Colbert starts off by saying it's refreshing to find a politically involved actor, but it says he's really split on him because on one hand he's a true artist, on the other hand his politics is killing us by inches. So you like to split difference. And I think Tim Robbins is probably the best in role as the main character on the Shawshank Redemption, although I don't know that much else.
Mr. Shawshank?
That's the name of the prison.
Yeah, I know. I haven't seen Shawshank.
And also, he's also in Bull Durham, which comes up.
Yeah.
I know they said that actually, they're going to do a screening of Bull Durham at the Baseball Hall of Fame, but because Tim Robbins and Susan Sarandon were protesting about the war in Iraq, they didn't want to, and they chose not to invite them because...
Was it for 100th anniversary or something?
It was 15th.
It was 15th.
I mean, there wouldn't be 100 years after.
Well, I thought the movie might have been about something that happened.
Yeah, I don't think it was. I think it was just about the Durham minor league baseball.
Yeah. Well, it's just a chance.
Yeah. So his first question is, what's it like working with Clint Eastwood, and why do you hate the troops?
All the questions are double.
I'm going to look up what movie he was in with Clint Eastwood because...
How far away is he from...
Oh, Mystic River in 2008. In 2003, he directed that. So
it's pretty recent at the time.
Yeah. So then he says that he doesn't hate the troops, but he does talk about... He does say that Clint Eastwood was great to work with, so...
Yeah.
I mean, Clint Eastwood is probably on the more conservative side, so I'm guessing he just wouldn't mind that. But...
Yeah.
And then Tim Robbins asks Colbert, why do you hate the truth? And he says he loves the truth. It's facts that he's not a fan of.
Yeah.
So the next question is, what's your favorite project, and would you rather have Saddam still in power? And they said it was Bull Durham is his favorite project, and that there were other ways to remove people. And then he says, you believe the administration lied, you can learn out about it in your play Embedded, which was a play that it seems like he produced and wrote entirely by himself.
Was it well thought of?
I don't know. And you could currently buy a copy of it online at embeddedlive.com.
Really?
Yeah.
How expensive is it?
I don't know. I think it was $18 from what I saw.
Oh, that's probably not very good then.
And then he says, you won't be seeing it in your Blockbuster. At first I thought it meant that it was you could actually watch it live online, but I looked at the website archives and it doesn't seem like you would watch it online. You could just buy it on DVD.
And you didn't buy it for this episode so we could do a live table read of the whole thing for the podcast.
I mean, why would it be a table read if you were watching the video? I mean, you could also get the script, I guess. But...
Yeah.
And then I'm going to point out, of course, how different it is that in the interview was the only time the audience is rooting against Colbert.
Yeah, they don't boo, but they'll sometimes cheer for the other.
Yeah. For
the interviewee who is not Colbert.
Although I feel like maybe it's different if Colbert was interviewing maybe a conservative. That would probably go different.
Well, yeah, but
yeah,
but it's just because usually the audience cheers for him when he does stupid things.
Yeah. And then he criticizes Colbert by saying that if it was obvious to you that no WMDs were in Iraq, it shows that the senators were lying, that they had no idea that Bush was wrong about the WMDs. Because, I mean, if actors could figure that out, surely the senators could. Because, as he said, actors are not a sharp crowd.
Actors are not a sharp crowd.
Yep, probably not. So Tim Robbins responds to the Democrats made the response of trusting the scam artists, which, as Colbert says, is just another way of going with your gut. And then he makes the joke he made earlier on that, Democrats had all the intelligence that Bush let them have.
Yeah.
So it's fine.
Do we know if Bush knew more or if Bush was equally...
I'm not sure.
Unknowing.
I know, it seems like probably, my best guess is that Bush probably thought they might have had weapons of mass destruction because, they did have chemical weapons, so it's not impossible. But, he probably knew that he had to stretch a bit to find some way that Saddam was sponsoring terrorism because it wasn't...
Was there a legal definition of WMDs?
I'm not sure if there is. Probably just...
Because, what counts as mass destruction?
I don't know. Yeah.
Because surely it's it must be an actually definable thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, write us an email, I guess, if figure it out.
Yeah. And so, Colbert's other thing is that, Tim Robbins, you're dividing us. We should be unified and you should join us. Which I feel like is pretty relevant because I feel like there are a lot of people that say that you're dividing us without really offering.
Without actually trying to stop the division.
Yeah. Or seeming to side with one side.
Yeah.
And then so he said, Tim Robbins says you can have a picnic, and Colbert's response is watch out for bears. He says, are you a bear lover? Do you like that movie, The Bear? It's like, it's not related to the current TV show, The Bear. This is actually about a bear.
Oh.
Is and the main actors are actually two real bears. And like the idea is like an orphan cub finds his way to like
Do they have agents?
I know like the one bear, Bart the bear, was actually like a pretty well-trained bear, and like I know some people were like, should Bart the bear have been nominated for an Oscar or something?
Can you nominate animals for Oscars?
I don't know. It's probably I'm not sure if there was like an Air Bud rule.
Well, yeah. I mean,
yeah. I think I remember Anthony Hopkins said he liked working with Bart the bear, although he wasn't in The Bear. But
Bart the bear is Bart the bear the greatest acting bear of all time?
Probably.
The goat.
And then, of course, Tim Robbins points out that Colbert is French. And as Colbert says, it's French, bitch, which was like his slogan from even before when he was back on The Daily Show and first starting to talk about Colbert.
So is this the same character as his Daily Show character?
It's not exactly, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't think they ever have like a firm...
Of course, Colbert is not actually French, right?
Yeah, I said like, it's whatever, where they did the genealogy, his ancestors did come from Ireland. And...
Yeah. And then he just took the French name to sound fancier?
I said it was actually pretty recent. Like, I mean, like... There's only a few of his family members that pronounce it Colbert. Like, I know some of his siblings, I think most of his siblings say Colbert.
Okay.
They know, like, his father always wanted to pronounce it Colbert, but he never did because it seems like he thought that the family wouldn't approve of it. And then it seems like when he went to Northwestern, he just started saying Colbert because...
To his friends?
Yeah.
Okay. Did Stephen also go to Northwestern?
I mean, saying Stephen... No, it was Colbert. Stephen Colbert.
Oh, and Stephen Colbert went to Northwestern.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think by then his father was dead.
I thought you were talking about Stephen Colbert's father.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then he is saying, though, that, like, there's such a thick layer of American laid down that I can take a topsoil layer of French top, the roots reach American, which seems like the reverse of how it would be when your roots be French and the one on top be
Well, that's
American.
not what's important to Colbert.
Yeah.
The important thing is that he's a true patriot.
Yeah. And so he says that he talks about how it's a good American word report and removing the T, but then he says that he's donating them to the Katrina victims because they have a lot of unpronounced T's in Louisiana.
Fantastic joke, I thought. That was really good.
And then he says, like, you've got something coming out, I want to mention it. I actually don't think I actually got that far as rewatching, sorry, but like, then he just moves right on, which is a pretty funny joke.
Yeah.
Because he's almost done with the interview, and they asked him if he was going to ditch the Patriot Act for the Iraq War.
Yeah, he said, and then Tim Robbins said he would ditch both.
Yeah. And so then at the end we have the Franogram. These two disappointing things could be turned into something much better. And it was gas and flu, and became U.S. flag. Yep. You were able to figure that one out pretty easily.
I mean, his flag is almost just there.
Yeah, it's a pretty short thing.
Yeah.
And so the next bit is about the congressional hearing on the oil prices.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that were getting called out for was that when the oil people were asked if they'd met with Cheney's Energy Task Force in 2001,
they said
they had not, but it seems like all the evidence pointed to them having done so. And so, like, Colbert calls out the media for their fact-based smear campaigns. And then talks about the clear-headed organizations like RAND, which is the government-funded research and development corporation.
Are they still government-funded?
I think so. And, of course, he says he can't do better than Rumsfeld's National Security Source and the Heritage Foundation, the famous...
Does RAND usually have a bias, like a conservative slant?
I don't know.
Because if it's government-funded, it's like...
Probably depends on the president.
Yeah.
And the Heritage Foundation, the famous conservative think tank. They said talked about their great tips for Angolan rebels, which I thought was kind of funny. Like, that's the worst... Like, it doesn't seem like the rebels in Angola are even, like, that bad.
No.
Like, I mean, it was true that like the Heritage Foundation was very big and like wanting them to intervene there, but
because I assume it was anti-communist rebels.
Yeah.
What do they do at a think tank? They just sit around and think all day?
I think it just like write like articles saying this is why you should support this and
okay. And do they give them to bigger newspapers or?
Yeah, and also I mean, assume they give them to politicians so that.
Okay.
I mean, it probably makes like their arguments look better. So
do they get paid by PACs to do that?
I mean, I think they get donors. I know, like, that's one of the controversial things is that, like, the donors for the think tanks are a lot less transparent than the donors for PACs.
Yeah, because it's a lot of money to pay all these people. Who I assume are people who want to be smart, too, and would like to get paid a lot.
Yeah. I think for people wondering if, like, Russian citizens are donating to the NRA, and they wouldn't be surprised by the Heritage Foundation because it seems like they've been trying to get America out of Ukraine now. So.
Yeah, does the NRA count as a think tank, or is it just
so to be fair, not quite, because they are just an organization for gun owners, so... that have a purpose in that way.
There's a thin line between like an organization and a think tank.
I know, like, they're mostly laid out in like the tax code, what the difference is between like.
So is think tank an actual tax?
I don't know. It's not called. I think it's just like a. I don't think so. I think it's part of a broader category.
I wonder who coined the term, because it's kind of an odd term.
Yeah, I forget that. Yeah, it's actually simple.
Does it come from a tank, like as in an office? Probably that kind of tank, rather than like a fish tank.
Yeah, although I assume it's derived from that. Like, it's definitely not the military.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then
never say never.
Yeah, and
linguistics is weird.
So we get our first mention of the Prescott Group, who becomes like a big thing, usually through their pharmaceutical division, Prescott Pharmaceuticals.
Yep.
Although here they're just referred to as a think tank, which seems kind of interesting. They'd have a pharmaceutical division, but I guess maybe whoever Mr. Prescott was founded both the Prescott Group and Prescott.
Yeah. Or maybe the think tank is part of the pharmaceutical company.
Maybe. Yeah. And so he says that like the Prescott Group underwrites the show, as he points out.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says that, like, they took me to a nice Palm Spring conference. They let us ride around in a PT Cruiser. We played golf. We got a video iPod.
Yeah.
A good picture.
How long are video iPods relevant?
I don't think for that long. I mean, the iPhone comes out only in 2 years, but I think the video iPod still probably stayed around.
So the video iPod was king until the iPhone.
Maybe. I mean, they did the iPod Touch, which is just the iPhone, but without the phone. But I think they manufactured that up until fairly recently, and now there aren't any official iPod products.
Is there any reason why a video iPod couldn't have had a phone feature? Like a call feature?
I mean, it could have, but I think...
That's just a cell phone?
Kind of, yeah. So then now we have the main part of this segment, which is their film by the Prescott Group, Oil, Here Today, More Tomorrow. And then there's sort of like a gong-like sound for transitions. It kind of reminds me of like the Vine sound effects, but like less effect. Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't actually gong. It felt more like just a pan that somebody was.
Yeah. And
it talks about how oil brings the world together in so many unexpected ways, and it shows the picture of Bush and the King of Saudi Arabia, Abdullah II, holding hands, which is from
very awkward hand hold.
Which is from April 2006 when Abdullah was visiting Bush's ranch.
April 2006?
No, I mean 2005. Huh. Yeah, I guess it must be 2005.
It can't have been 2006 because that was the future.
So probably 2005 then.
Maybe he had multiple visits to his ranch?
Yeah, or maybe I was looking at another one, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was from the ranch. Because it didn't know.
What day in April?
It says April 25th. Okay. Maybe that was wrong because maybe I wasn't looking at the...
Yeah, well, it's just anytime something happens in April, I wonder if it's my birthday.
Yeah.
It's always a small chance. George W. Bush, Saudi Arabia.
Oh, this is April the White 2002 in that picture, so...
That's the George Bush website? Is it still active?
I think they archive all of the websites for each president. So there's like the White House website for Bush, the White House website for Obama, the White House website for Trump. And I'm curious if they'll bring back one for Trump if he becomes president again.
Yeah, how do they do that? Yeah. Do they have White House? Do they make up White House websites for like Washington and so on and so forth?
That would be funny, but no.
Who was the first president to have a White House website?
I think it was Clinton.
It was Clinton?
Yeah. I know that like some like pornographic site actually bought the whitehouse.com domain name first, and they had to... Although it was whitehouse.gov anyway, so...
Yeah. I guess they did that to see if they could get money from the government.
Probably. And so then the movie says, people say oil hurts America, but what do they think would be better? I mean, when with solar power, when the sun goes down, you can't turn the lights on when you need it the most.
Yeah. Alex, could it be a potential money-making scheme to buy websites of random acronyms.gov? Or I guess you can't buy
I don't think you can buy .govs.
I'm just starting with an N, because there's a good chance that the government would maybe create a brand, like something with that.
Yeah, and then it says that hippies and Hollywood liberals will change themselves to nuclear gates, and nuclear power isn't an option.
Yeah.
And all those wind power people should move to Holland with all those dope fiends. The thing about the Netherlands, if you're honest, it's not legal there, but it has been decriminalized, and they say that like you can give it out at like the coffee houses. Legal? But you can give it out, but it seems like they don't. I
thought
it
was
really.
Legal. It hasn't?
Yeah, I think like probably was just hard for international treaties. Like I think it's only been recently the countries have been legalizing it entirely. Like even in Jamaica, it's technically illegal. Although I think Rastafarians are allowed to do it as part of like the peace they came to with them. So
yeah, because it's like a religious thing.
Yeah,
right?
And he claims that if you didn't drill for oil, you know what would happen? It says 5,000 years ago, the dinosaurs ruled the earth, and then something happened, and it shows Jesus telling them to go underground.
Yeah, to make oil.
I know he makes a lot of jokes later about like Jesus burying the dinosaur bones, and his next Prescott film was on DNA. But...
Yeah, that'd be a good reason for Jesus to do it, because Jesus made oil.
And then he says if there was no drilling, the oil pressure would blow up the world, and it says potentially disastrous consequences.
Is there any such thing as oil pressure?
I mean, there can be, but I mean, obviously.
Yeah. Well, does the oil exert pressure? Because like that's how you drill it, or
probably somewhat. But then it says like thanks to the latest in giant pipe technology, we can get oil from anywhere. He really likes the giant pipe too.
Yeah.
And of course, there's the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, which is like the most famous controversy about whether he should be allowed to drill for oil there. I think so far still no. I mean, they've tried a lot of times.
I assume there are large oil reservoirs, reserves there.
Yeah, I know. I think like part of the problem is that Alaska doesn't want it. So
yeah, is there any way to siphon oil? Because in theory, that'd be the most cost-efficient way, right?
Siphon oil from what?
The ground. Like using the siphon, because...
No, I mean, a siphon is to move something. You don't get things out of the ground with a siphon.
You can't?
The siphon is just for, like, it goes down and then it goes back up. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure if the...
But then in theory, that would be no energy, right?
I assume that's just how pipelines work. But
yeah.
It says you can drill in Colonial Williamsburg, Arlington National Cemetery, your backyard. We'll just drill some wells just to be safe, and if there's none, you can just keep the oil rig.
Yeah. Have there been any scientific updates on how siphons work?
I don't know.
Or do we still not know?
Probably multiple ways, but yeah.
It's not cohesion because it works with stuff that's not water, right?
Yeah, that's why they know that. And then it says oil is called our big black friend. And by the time it runs out, you'll be dead. I mean, it is true that like there's definitely more oil than we expected, so.
There'll probably be even more than we...
Yeah. And, I mean, if we use less oil, probably. Yeah. And then, of course, at the end, Colbert credibly says, you don't hear that in the press. I didn't know half of that stuff.
Yeah. So does most oil come from the Carboniferous period?
Probably. So, of course, most of it doesn't come from dinosaurs. Like,
yeah.
Even if it is from the dinosaur eras, I mean, they just weren't that much of a percentage of the biomass.
Plants are what make most of the fossil fuels, right?
Yeah, I think it's plants and, like, plankton. And
not animals.
Yeah.
Well, there's not enough animals, right?
Yeah.
Not enough biomass.
Yeah.
Is there enough biomass of humans that we could make a significant...
I don't think so.
You know, humans have made humans have the largest biomass of any animal right now.
I think I heard they say no. I think cows are probably more.
Cows
I remember
more?
seeing that cows are probably more.
Does human agriculture have enough biomass to make a significant energy reserve?
I do remember hearing that if you had a pile of all the humans, it wouldn't even reach the top of the Grand Canyon. But
the Grand Canyon's pretty deep.
Yeah.
Well, stacked how?
I don't know. Just like in a pile, like all together, and like cone or something.
I assume that they're all staying on each other's shoulders, then.
Yeah.
Obviously.
And so then it's just like the short bit at the end is for Thanksgiving or vacation, and his advice is for cooking turkey is 20 minutes to the pound and do not pre-stuff.
I assume that is real advice.
Yeah. And so I guess that's it. And an alright episode. Signing off.